Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader, and tonight we're going to focus on the Egyptians celebrating the glorious Resurrection Day as well as the Easter. As we did see yesterday, the congratulations being sent by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Pope Tawadros II, the Pope of Alexandria and the Holy Apostolic See of St. Mark, as well as the congratulations sent to the Egyptians Copts living outside of Egypt and inside of it as well. But we will be starting straight away with the top stories after introducing my main guest for today. And I am honored to be having with me over the program for tonight is Engineer Hosam Heshmat, the researcher in the Christian-Islamic relations. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Happy
My
Easter.
pleasure. Thank you.
Anytime. We will be starting straight away with the top stories that took place over the today and yesterday, as well as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi congratulated the Egyptian Copts on Easter. Posting on his social media account, the President said, "Happy feast for the Egyptian Copts, wishing many happy returns of the occasion, with the Egyptians showing the best example in fraternity and coexistence." Earlier, President al-Sisi congratulated Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria and the Patriarch of the See of St. Mark, stressing the strong national unity and ties of brotherhood and love among all the Egyptians, Muslims and Christians, asking God to bless the Egyptian people and to protect the country from all evils. Meanwhile, First Lady Intisar al-Sisi greeted the Egyptian Copts on Sunday on Easter. On her social media account, she wished them all peace and prosperity on the occasion. Speaker of the Senate, Councillor Abdul Wahab Abdul Razak, sent a congratulatory cable to Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria and the Patriarch of the See of St. Mark on the occasion of Easter. Meanwhile, he greeted all the Copts, wishing the nation welfare and prosperity under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Earlier, Speaker of House of Representatives Hanafi Gibeli sent a greeting cable to Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria and the Patriarch of St. Mark Cathedral on the same occasion. He expressed his great appreciation to Pope Tawadros II in spreading the values of tolerance and love among all the Egyptians. He also extended his sincere greetings to all the Copts on the occasion. And for the final top story, Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria and the Patriarch of the See of St. Mark, led the Easter Mass at Abbasiyya St. Mark Cathedral. The Pope received a number of ministers, top officials and statesmen, offering greetings on the occasion. Pope Tawadros stressed the necessity to maintain peace in the nation, pointing that tolerance and reconciliation are the base of peace among all the nations. We will be heading to the first report of the Daily Debate for tonight, focusing on the greetings sent by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on the occasion of Resurrection Day. We will be having more details in the upcoming report. Stay tuned.
President Fattah al-Sisi congratulates Pope Tawadros II on occasion of Easter. Egypt's Coptic Christians celebrate Easter after 55-day fast. President Fattah al-Sisi congratulated Pope Tawadros II, the Pope of Alexandria and Patriarch of the See of St. Mark, on the occasion of the Easter holiday. In a telegram, President al-Sisi reaffirmed to Pope Tawadros II the strong national unity and ties of brotherhood and love between the people of Egypt, Muslims and Christians. The President also sent congratulatory messages to the Coptic expatriate community through the country's embassies and consulates. Meanwhile, Minister of Defense and Military Production Mohammed Zaki sent on Saturday cable of greetings to Pope Tawadros II on the occasion of Easter. Minister Zaki expressed his heartfelt feelings over the occasion, wishing Egyptian Copts welfare and happiness. He praised the sacrifices of Copts who joined the armed forces in defense of the homeland. Also, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces Hosam sent a similar cable to the Pontiff. Pope Tawadros II, the Pope of Alexandria and the head of the Coptic Orthodox Church, lead the Holy Resurrection Mass at St. Mark's Coptic Orthodox Cathedral in Abbasiyya, Cairo. The celebration is attended by representatives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, along with several ministers, senior officials, state figures, representatives from Al-Azhar, members of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Joining the Pope during the Mass, bishops, priests and the choir of the Coptic Orthodox Theological College. Egypt's Coptic Orthodox Christians flock to churches on their Holy Saturday to celebrate the resurrection of the Christ. Egypt's Christian community are one of the oldest Christian communities in the world. The holiday comes at the end of a 55-day fast during which Coptic Orthodox believers consume no meat, fish or dairy products. This year the fast partially overlapped with the holy month of Ramadan. On the 11th of March, Egypt's Muslims and Christians began fasting together.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I am honored to be having with me over the program for tonight is Engineer Hosam Heshmat, the researcher in the Christian-Islamic relations. Thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. I would like to know more about the spiritual significance of those holidays for yesterday and of course for Easter as well.
Yeah, okay. First of all, thank you for having me again on your show.
Anytime.
Always a pleasure. This feast is actually recognized in the Christian tradition as the Feast of Feasts. It's not just one of the Christian feasts, it is the most important of all.
Yes.
Because it is about the cornerstone of Christianity, which is the resurrection of Christ. For us as Christians, everything hinges upon that fact that Jesus, who was crucified, was raised again from the dead. Actually, according to our tradition, St. Paul, for example, says that if Christ was not raised from the dead, then your faith is futile, and we are the most pitiful of all people. So resurrection is more or less the heart of Christianity. And so when we celebrate on annual basis that day, it is our not just remembrance, but our re-immersion into that experience of the resurrection of Christ. So that's why actually there is a very long fast before that day.
55 days.
Yes, it is called the Great Lent, especially in the Coptic Church. We fast for 55 days, and these are days of observance. They are like, this is the way we are trying to say that these are just holy days. They are not the ordinary days. We are starting our yearly journey towards the day of resurrection. We are trying to live that story again and again so that it can change our minds and our imagination and change the way we see God, we see ourselves, and we see the world. So resurrection is, like they say, the be-all and end-all of the Christian faith. It is all what the whole faith is built on.
Yes, what can we be learning from the fact that the Christians are fasting for 55 days, and of course at the end of fasting as well, the morals that live along the year as well for the Christians and for all humanity?
Well, the morals are not to be learned from the fasting itself, but actually from the event we are celebrating. So what we try to focus on and learn from is the story of Christ, who was crucified and resurrected. And actually it has to do with the meaning of this story, because I know for most non-Christians this is the story for Christians to celebrate. That's fine for them, but actually it has has lots of potential to speak to everyone, not just to Christians, and not just to those who even fasted these 55 days.
Yes.
It is a message about how God sees humanity and how God commits himself to humanity. He wants to be close, he wants to be near, and he pays the price of that nearness, he pays the price of that love, and that price will eternally be celebrated, starting by the resurrection of Christ. So the main moral we can learn from this story is to first have faith in that God who loves us and who is very near to us, and to have hope that even the darkest moments are not the end of the story. On the cross we see tyranny, on the cross we see violence, on the cross we see injustice. But on the resurrection day we see God vindicating peace, not violence. We see God vindicating forgiveness, not vengeance, and so on. So actually this kind of morality is one way of transforming our ethics in general, which should reflect on our daily lives. So our way of dealing with suffering should change. Our way of dealing with responsibilities should change. Our ways of dealing with each other should change. And of course, our way of trying to get close to God should change. We are not getting close to someone who just wants to punish us. He is someone who wants to redeem us, to save us, and to change our lives.
On the other hand, you've mentioned the words, the story of Christ,
yes.
the lifetime of Jesus Christ. What can we be learning from it, his time on earth?
Yeah, I think for 2,000 years the whole humanity has been trying to understand lesson after lesson what Jesus wanted to teach humanity. So I will not, it will not be appropriate to just point out 2 or 3 lessons to be learned. Jesus himself was the lesson.
Yes.
Jesus himself was the real challenge to the human existence. That is the model of humanity that God wanted and that God still wants. So it is not just some ethical teaching that we should learn from. It is the person of Christ himself, his story, his public ministry, his love, his cross, his resurrection. The whole story as such is a lesson. It's like God's message to the world and to all history. But again, to be, at least to pinpoint something,
yes.
I would say that Christ, by presenting himself as the manifestation of God's forgiving love to humanity, should be considered as the heart of his ministry and his life here on earth. So if there is one thing that we need to learn from Christ, it is to know and to learn that God is love. And if God is love and God created us to be a community that has a relationship with him, we should reflect that love in our relationships. And of course, that love should be reciprocated by our love to God. So I would say this is the heart of the story. It's a story of love above all. It's a story of God's will being interpreted in a very loving, forgiving person who lived among us.
Yes, 2 key words here that you've mentioned, Engineer Hosam Heshmat, is love and forgiveness as well. How do you think we should be implementing and turning those words onto the ground, to be translating them onto the ground, especially with all the political and the circumstances that we have been facing globally, not here in Egypt? How do you think we should be solving those issues, those political issues, those wars with the words love and forgiveness?
I think that's exactly where the story of the cross and resurrection hits home. The cross will always loom over history as a reminder of the brutal reality of violence.
Yes.
On the cross, we see how human can be cruel, how human can be savage, how human can be very morally corrupt. We see injustice incarnate, we see hatred incarnate, in the way Jesus was scourged and crucified. And yet, on the resurrection day, we see God condemning that violence. We see God saying, this is not the way I want it to be. This is not how I want this world to be ruled. And actually, this has all to do with the way we normally relate between violence and order. Lots of political regimes all over human history have identified these two terms together. It is through violence that we maintain order. And at the time of Christ, the Roman Empire was not different. Actually, they were the order keepers, and the way they normally maintained that order was through very violent actions like the cross. And in the fact and the story of Jesus being resurrected, it seems like God is saying, I do not want these two terms to be in such identification with each other. Order can be maintained in a very different way. And that's actually what's very unique about the story of the resurrection of Christ, because let us imagine that we are talking about a normal movie or a novel.
Yes.
If you see the good hero who was unjustly murdered come back to life, what would you expect him to do? You would expect him to come back for vengeance. That's exactly what we would expect. But surprisingly, he does not come back for vengeance. He does not seek to take revenge. Actually, the first words that we hear from him after he goes back to those who left him, abandoned him, was peace to you. Salamun lakum. So it is God's way of saying maybe order should be maintained based on peace and not violence, on mercy and not brutality. And that's what the story is all about, actually. And it still holds that those who are oppressed should not think that the violence they are being exposed to would be the final line in their story. There will be another ending from God. God will redeem the situation. Actually, God will use that suffering, will use that brutality to open a new future where the violent one, where the oppressor will not be there. So there's a lot to be learned from the same story about the importance and the significance and the weight of being a loving rather than a hateful or a raging person. And that also applies in a communal sense on the whole nation. If that was our ethic, an ethic of love, an ethic of forgiveness, an ethic of open future, an ethic of a second chance, I think that will change a lot in our community.
Yes, and speaking of the Egyptian community and for all humanity as well, within the nation and outside of it, the lesson that we need to be passing on to the next generations from the story of Christ, from the lifetime of Christ and the teachings of Jesus Christ is unity, to be united between the generations, to be united within the nation and for all humanity as well. How do you think this is so important nowadays for Egypt and for the entire world?
Yes, actually, again, this has a lot to do with the same story of the resurrection of Christ, because maybe it's important to understand more the meaning of the resurrection, because sometimes we misunderstand what the Christian tradition say when we talk about the resurrection of Christ. Some would think that it is just about the fact that Jesus went to heaven, so we will go to heaven like him.
Yes.
Or that he is just a very miraculous, unique event in history that has nothing to do with us, but it is something that we should be celebrating as an act of God. This is true, of course, but it is way more than that. The resurrection is the claim that Jesus Christ, who was brutally crucified under Jewish pressure and under the Roman authorities, was resurrected in bodily form. He was not, he did not come back as a ghost or as a spirit. He came back as a budded person. And that body actually ascended unto heaven. That is our belief and our faith as Christians. And in seeing bodily resurrection, not just spiritual resurrection, but bodily resurrection, maintains for our thought to unite between our heavenly home and our earthly home. We can see a person in a human body ascending into heaven, saying that these two realms are not that separated.
Yes.
There is a bridge between these two realms. Of course, they work under very different kinds of power. They are still different domains, but they are related to each other. And for us today, knowing that there is no separation between our heavenly home and our earthly home should reflect again on the way we look at our nation. We need to see Egypt not just as an address where we are staying, not just a house, not just a place for people to come to visit us. It is our home. It is our home. And if both Christians and Muslims could see that in Egypt, a home where we live together, coming closer to each other will not be that hard. So I think it has to do with the way we think about Egypt itself, about the nation. Before we think about each other, how do we think about our nation? If it is our home, that will bring us together. And based on the story of resurrection, we are obliged, at least as Christians, to think of our earthly homeland very seriously as a true home.
Yes, and speaking of home, our nation, our Egypt, we have seen yesterday, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the daily debate for tonight, the messages sent by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Pope Tawadros II, to the Egyptian Copts and the expatriates living outside of Egypt, to the Copts living within Egypt as well, how they see the importance of the President reaching out to the Copts, celebrating the day of resurrection and the Easter as well. How do you see the importance of unity between the Christians and the Muslims on such an important religious day?
Of course, when the relationship between the leaders is a relationship of peace, of friendship, of brotherly love, that will definitely have its repercussions on the whole Egyptian society. And I do not prefer to think about Christians and Muslims as just two religious fronts that we are trying to see how to promote their coexistence,
yes,
but rather as Egyptian citizens. And if the leaders who represent that society set the example and provide a role model to us, we are to learn from that. And we are to respect that historical moment that we are living in. And to make the most of it, these good relationships, this spirit of kindness should be a very good environment for the whole Egyptian society to maintain mutual understanding, to start getting closer to each other. I'm not just talking about those in official positions, but those who live as neighbors together in one building.
Yes.
This is a good environment for unity. This is a good environment to wake up that spirit of togetherness in doing everything, and to be aware that together we are traveling this journey. And Egypt will not really be a strong nation unless all of us will help it be like that.
Yes, Engineer Hosam Heshmat, of course, I would like to ask about the statements and the words of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi describing Pope Tawadros II as a wise man.
Yeah.
He always describes him of wisdom. How do you see the importance of the role of Pope Tawadros II in terms of keeping the national cohesion and the social unity as well?
Of course, in the Christian tradition, we normally appreciate not a powerful leader, but a wise leader.
Yes.
And I think wisdom is seeing things for what they really are. So I believe Pope Tawadros sees Egypt for what it really is, and sees the moment we live in for what it really is, and sees the situation of the Coptic community and the Muslim leaders and the Ummah in general for what they really are. And that helps him take the right decisions and represent the millions of Copts in an appropriate manner. So that wisdom that the President has always been recognizing and appreciating is something that we normally seek, and we normally are hungry for those wise leaders who would not be hasty in their decisions and their reactions, and that's how you diffuse acts of violence or rumors or false news and so on. So I think, again, having the Pope as the Coptic leader is a very good chance and a very good environment for both Copts and Muslims to initiate long journeys of dialogue together.
Yes, Pope Tawadros II is also a man of science and knowledge,
Yes.
as well as being a man of faith and religion. What is the importance of having all those characteristics when selecting a Pope?
Yeah, and that brings me back to the way I try to define wisdom, because science and education in general helps the person to see reality on a deeper level, and to know that we live in a very complicated world, and that history in general, not just scientific facts, but history in general, is a very complicated journey.
Yes.
And so I think his scientific background and his education have empowered him, have enabled him to be able to do his job in a relevant and in a meaningful way that gains the respect not only of the religious, but of the whole community. So, and that's actually what I normally encourage young people to do, even those who are very interested in religious jobs or in religious positions. I would normally encourage people to go study science, study history, get to know the world for what it really is, and then start taking religion seriously. It will give you new eyes, and it will make you of a weighty opinion among the community.
Especially that you are an engineer and a man of faith. Engineer Hosam Heshmat, allow me to be going to the other report of the daily debate for tonight, focusing on the Easter celebrations here in the country, as we celebrated the Resurrection Day on Saturday, or at the beginning of Sunday as well. We'll be having more details on Easter and the Egyptian link between Easter and the Shem Nisim here in the country. We'll be having more details in the upcoming reports, so stay tuned.
Shem Nisim has been celebrated by Egyptians since ancient times, regardless of religious background or social status. Shem Nisim, a festival that takes place in the same breath as Easter, falling on the day after Easter Sunday each year. The rituals and beliefs associated with the Shem Nisim celebrations link it directly to ancient Egyptian feasts. Much like Easter, the festival deals with notions of creation and renewal. Like most ancient Egyptian feasts, Shem Nisim was linked to astronomy and nature. It marked the beginning of the spring festival, with day and night equal in length and the sun in the Aries zodiac marking the beginning of creation. Ancient Egyptians, who called it the Feast of Shamu, the revival of life, determined the exact date each year by measuring the sun's alignment with the Great Pyramid in Giza. These days, many Egyptians rise at the crack of dawn and head out to parks and gardens for a family picnic. There they enjoy the spring breeze with a traditional meal of fish, onions and eggs. Fish figured large in ancient Egyptian beliefs, and this translated into a range of dishes. Salted fish, known as fisikh, was offered to the gods in Esna in Upper Egypt. Indeed, Esna's ancient name was Latopolis, reflecting the original name of the fish before salting. Another traditional Shem Nisim practice is coloring of eggs, which reflects the ancient Egyptian view of eggs as symbolic of new life. Ancient Egyptians also considered certain flowers and plants to be holy, with the lotus flower used to symbolize the Egyptian nation. Families in ancient Egypt would combine these various elements at Shamanisim. They would gather the day before to color boiled eggs, preparing meals of fisih and onions. They would then spend the day in the open air welcoming the spring with joyful singing.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, a very special episode for the Egyptians celebrating the day of resurrection and the Easter as well, or Shem Nisim, here in the country. And I'm honored to be having with me over the program for tonight Engineer Hosam Heshmat, the researcher in the Christian-Islamic relations. Engineer Hosam, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate. My next question would be about Islam and Christianity here in the country, as the Egyptian family house. It has both wings, Pope Tawadros II and of course the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Ahmad Al-Tayyib. How do you see the importance of having both wings in terms of dealing with the social unity, having more social unity, to be having more cohesion within the society or the Egyptian communities? How do you see the importance of the Egyptian family house with both wings there?
I think it was a very wise and honest initiative. I think the family house was established right after the 2011 revolution. There were lots of struggle, lots of challenges, and it was very wise of the leaders of both churches, both communities,
yes,
to start getting close to each other, talk to each other, and discuss together the destiny of our nation and the challenges we share. So I think that is one of the most important projects and movements that we have been witnessing throughout the past few years. And being in dialogue together will always help the nation be a more healthy community. Living separated from each other never helps. And you know, when we talk about interfaith dialogue, we normally talk about what they call the dialogue of head, hands, and heart. So when you're talking about the dialogue of head, and that's something that needs to be further promoted, especially in the family house.
Yes.
It is how to intellectually reach out to each other, how to understand the faith of the other, how to respect the other's self-definition, and how to learn from the other. So I think this is something that has started. There is a lot of more things to be done on that dimension, but the dialogue of head is very important. The dialogue of hands is when we work together on the common struggles of our nation, when we are trying to defy the corruption or poverty or illiteracy, when we put our hands together to build our common home to us. And the dialogue of hearts is our pursuit of beauty. And that's something that I think needs to be taken even more seriously in the Egyptian society. Humans are not just thinking things. We have emotions. We are normally carried by our desires. And if we want a serious dialogue, that dialogue should include that emotional part of us. It should reflect on art, on music, on poetry, on architecture. And so we can have projects, artistic projects, that represent that unity. That normally inspires citizens, it inspires Egyptians in a way that lasts. So I think what the family house is doing is very precious, is very serious, is very wanted. and there is a lot of more potential to that project.
Yes, and we need to be focusing on this potential for the future. Engineer Hosam Heshmat, the researcher in the Christian-Islamic relations, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate, and the Happy Easter.
Thank you.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of a special episode of the Daily Debate for tonight, celebrating the day of resurrection and Easter as well here in the country. I will be leaving you, however, with the latest from the presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in the upcoming report. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi witnessed the inauguration of the government data and cloud computing centers. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receives chairman of the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and both hold a joint press conference. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receives a phone call from U.S. President Joe Biden. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receives the Emir of the State of Kuwait, His Highness Sheikh Mishal al-Ahmad al-Jabir al-Sabbah. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi grants the Emir of the State of Kuwait the Order of the Nile, the highest and most prestigious Egyptian order. On his official Facebook page, President al-Sisi extends his deepest appreciation and recognition to all Egyptian workers on Labor Day. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi attends a celebration marking Labor Day and honoring a number of workers in various sectors. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inspects the hair industrial complex. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi sent a greeting cable to His Holiness Pope Tawadros II of Alexandria and Patriarch of the See of St. Mark and Copts on the occasion of Easter. In the cable, the President prayed to Allah to bring goodness and development to Egypt and protect Egypt and all Egyptians. The President also sent similar cables to Egyptian Copts abroad.